I'm Steve Palazzolo, and this is your Florida Gators breakdown brought to you by Eckrich, the official smoked sausage of the Florida Gators. Mike, it was not a great week for Florida, the first loss against Kentucky in a number of years, but still some positives to pull out of that. And let me just start with this. Kentucky's not as bad as they've been in previous years, and they have some stars, guys like Josh Allen, guys like Benny Snell, who's now in the Heisman conversation. And of course, they had the most ridiculous throw of Terry Wilson's life against him. That was one of the best throws of the entire week. Maybe Florida shouldn't feel that bad about the loss.
Yeah, it was kind of the perfect storm, like you mentioned. Terry Wilson, that throw at the end of the third quarter was a backbreaker. And Kentucky, with Benny Snell, they're not a bad offense. Like, this is one of the better Kentucky teams in recent memory. Florida, obviously, Dan Mullen, first year, a little bit of a transitional period for them. So sucks that it had to happen, but it was going to happen at some point.
All right, so credit to Kentucky for what they were able to do. But let's go through Florida. On the offensive side of the ball, offensive line a little bit up and down. There's some positives, some negatives, depending on how you're going to look at it. And then I think the running backs, Florida's in this place where I think when you look at the running back depth and you look at the receiver depth, I do think they have the playmakers to turn things around offensively and make things difficult for opposing defenses in SEC play.
Yeah, they have actual, like you said, playmakers. If they can just facilitate getting the ball into their hands more frequently with more space to work with, this is an offense that can be a lot better than they've shown in the first 2 weeks of the season. They just, like you said, they haven't been getting it there efficiently. Felipe Franks just has not been accurate enough through the first 2 weeks to be doing that. I think scheme a little more ways to get the playmakers in their hands earlier rather than a lot of the downfield passing that we've seen.
Yeah, we saw Jordan Scarlett force 5 missed tackles on only 7 carries. He looked really quick. So, maybe, I don't normally like running the ball, but maybe Florida's formula is, Malik Davis and Jordan Scarlett and getting the ball in their hands, LaMichael P. Ryan, all these guys, get that committee going, give them all, an equal, not necessarily an equal number, but a lot of touches between all of them and really trust that run game to try to control the ball offensively.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound almost blasphemous, but maybe take a page out of what we saw from Alabama under the Jalen Hurts era, where it was a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of using the quarterback in the run game, and then a lot of underneath stuff and screens and that sort of thing because you have such good playmakers but not the capability to throw the ball down the field. And Felipe Franks' biggest strength so far has basically been his ability to run the ball. He's been fairly good in that regard, but down the field passing, I think he went 0 for 7 on throws 20-plus yards down the field in this past game. That's just, it's not good.
Yeah, so it's a lot of pressure on the pass game when you do have to kind of play in that catch-up role in the fourth quarter. And overall, the offensive line was a little bit better run blocking than they were pass blocking the other night against Kentucky.
The $1 Million Challenge is headed to Gainesville this year for the LSU-Florida game.
Oh, nothing like a game in the swamp.
I'd step out on that field in front of all those crazy Gators and I'd throw a laser.
Imagine that crowd going crazy. Marty, Marty.
Would either of y'all ever put your head in the Gator's mouth? I'd do it for $1 million.
It'd mess up your hair, though.
Enter at EckridgeFootball.com for your chance to win $1 million in the Florida LSU game.
Nope. Wouldn't move an inch.
What about on the defensive side of the ball? I don't know if anyone's truly stepped up along that defensive line. That's kind of been the MO at Florida. Whether it's a Dante Fowler, whether it was Taven Bryan last year, Jonathan Bullard. Through the years, a new guy emerges every year. I'm not sure that they have that guy just yet so far this season.
Yeah, I don't think they have, and they've been trying basically everyone along that defensive front, trying to get someone who can bring pressure because they only got pressure on, they only had 6 total pressures this past game against Kentucky. That's not going to get it done, especially in the SEC. You have to get after the quarterback. I want to see how they do, though, this week, because if you're not going to do it this week against Colorado State, who has only one player with a pass blocking grade above 65, I don't think it's going to happen at any point this season.
So one other player that you were sending me text messages about during the game, C.J. Henderson in the secondary, a guy that stood out. By the way, Marco Wilson being out for the season, a tough blow. Will test the depth in the Florida secondary, but Henderson certainly a guy that stood out through 2 games.
Yeah, Henderson's definitely upholding that Florida secondary tradition. He's been targeted 5 times so far, allowed 2 catches. Those 2 catches have gone for exactly 0 yards. Beautiful. He has a pick himself, 2 pass breakups. He's been very good in that secondary for only a sophomore.
So you already mentioned Colorado State. Looking forward, hopefully Florida's pass rush will be able to get off the ground against a weaker offensive line, but also Florida's pass game. Guys like Tyree Cleveland and Trevon Grimes and Kadarius Toney, whichever way you try to get him the ball. Colorado State's pass defense, 6th worst in the nation right now. So how would you approach this, knowing that Florida needs the pass game to really maximize their upside in the SEC during the season, but also what we went back to, the run game also needs to be a big foundation of what they're doing.
Yeah, like I said, get the ball into your playmakers' hands as soon as humanly possible, whether that's the screen game, whether that's through quick passing in the middle of the field. You just need the ball in those hands. What we saw from Kadarius Toney was very impressive on the limited snaps he played this past week after not having played week 1. He was a nightmare after the catch for them. So I think that's the strategy going forward. And like I said, with the offensive line for Colorado State's very bad, at least the secondary for them is very bad. If it doesn't happen this week, probably not going to happen again.
So big week for Florida to get the offense back on track, get the pass rushers back on track. That's what we'll be watching for against Colorado State. That'll do it for us. That's our weekly Florida breakdown. It's all brought to you by Eckrich, the official smoked sausage of the Florida Gators. Don't forget to pick up Eckrich smoked sausage at your local grocery store for this week's tailgate or homegate party. And make sure to visit EckridgeFootball.com for great game day recipes and to enter their season-long $1 Million Challenge.